And welcome to a Fantasy Fan Sportscast. We're tonight, probably our last combo show, or at least for a little while, where we're joined with HBYOB. So we can talk about all kinds of stuff tonight. We're going to be talking like normal, barbecuing, homebrewing, poker, little fantasy sports. I got some random questions, and we're just going to have a good time. Joined by my co-host from a Fantasy Fan Sportscast, Chris Allen. How you doing tonight, Chris?
I'm doing well. Mark, how you guys doing tonight?
I'm doing fine. Getting closer to fantasy football time. So still out there mocking, kind of popped in, got most of my podcast queued up now, and all that fun stuff. We're joined again by with the owner of HBYOB, Homebrew Your Own Beer here in Dayton, Ohio, Joey Brumley. Joey, how you doing tonight?
I am doing very well.
And are you ready for fantasy sports?
I cannot wait.
I knew that was coming. We've had fun these last 2 or 3 shows. I think we've had more fun. I don't think the fantasy people really care about us bullshitting, but I have found it. I've had fun. And you know what? It's got us, get the equipment working right and everything. So we'll be ready for the fantasy season. And then we'll get back into some real home brewing shows here in the next week or two. So tonight, like I said, nothing. I don't have anything, what I'm going to call a major topic. Is there anything, we'll start with you, Chris, anything major that you didn't do, needed to do, watched, a sporting event, anything that caught your eye this last week?
Nothing I can think of off the top of my head. I do know that, the British Open is coming up soon, golf tournament. So that'll be something that folks will be watching for. And that's
one of those things where they just changed the name too, right? Isn't it just called the Open?
Pretty much. Yeah, I know that was the original name, but I forget.
I still call it the British Open. I hate all that crap. Right.
Yeah, I don't like it when they change it. Just stick with the same name so folks know what they're watching. But
right. Yeah. Marketing people.
Yeah, exactly.
So I guess what I was going to bring up as a quick topic was the Wimbledon.
Yep.
The semifinals were some of the best tennis matches I've ever watched.
They were great.
Including the record breaker one that went for like 6 hours and 33 minutes.
It was ridiculous.
I see your beer. We'll get there in a minute. So that was good. I'll get into here in a minute. We'll talk about what beer we're doing. And then I have a quick question about the Wimbledon player and Mrs. Williams coming back after having a baby. They were making a big deal about it. Let me go first to Joey. Joey, is there anything news, headlines, anything you want to get into before we start?
Not too much, other than I'm wearing a shirt, beard and sweat.
Show us the shirt. I think it's a pretty cool shirt. Now,
there we go.
August 18th, right, Chris?
Yeah,
that's what you got with your $15.
I don't remember. I was at a beer drinking competition.
I would buy that shirt. Yeah, that's a pretty cool shirt.
I wear it all the time. It's a lot of fun. If you want to see me, Chris, we should be there. And
what's the date?
August 18th from noon till basically whenever everybody passes out.
Yeah, they have discounted hotel. It's at a hotel, and they have discounted hotel room rates.
All right, so you don't have to drive. I'm assuming if people get a hold of you on their Twitter account, let's say they're going to be there. If they go to your Twitter account and direct message you or something, and
last year I was actually tweeting from the HBYOB Twitter handle live, like from the event. I had some pictures and stuff up, and like trying to like post as the event went on. So trying to have some fun on Twitter.
All right. Well, then, our fans, I'm sure we got at least one somewhere. If they're going to go, if they can, tweet you guys, find out where you're at. I wrote the date down. I don't know if I have plans or not. What about, are you drinking anything tonight, Chris? Your drinking habits, I'm always confused. What do you got going on this week?
I've got more water. I've got a race on Saturday, so it's more water.
Oh,
and then after that, it's on and popping.
You always use the word race, and I'm not racist. But a race is something you do to win. You're just going for a run, right? I mean, you're not going there to win this, are you?
Yes, it's a timed event. It's
time, but you're only racing yourself, right? Come on.
No, I'm trying to make sure that I'm in front. Like at least.
Are you going to break the ribbon? Are you the guy going to break the ribbon?
I'm not racing across all ages, but I will try and be out in front for the folks that are in my age group.
I got you. I would kick a little kid's ass.
I want to go to one of those races and pull a Boston Marathon. Didn't that lady?
That was years ago where they found out
or some shit.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
She came out like
50 yards.
She came out of a deli or something with like a ham and cheese and won the race.
Have an Uber waiting for me just down the road.
I think it was before that technology was even around.
Take off. Have someone drive me 50 feet to the finish line.
Come out.
But that's
I don't want to hear record time.
What are you drinking this evening, Joey?
I'm going for the bronze. The first place, that's too much attention. So I'm just going to go for the bronze.
What are you drinking?
Me? I'm drinking.
I saw you hold up a can.
Me and Chris have been to this very good Jackie O's Mystic Mama is the beer, and we went to Jackie O's for. Do you call that a race, Chris? That we went to?
That's more of an event because we didn't.
Wait a minute.
I didn't care what my time was for that one.
I got you. So you actually care about your run in this event. So what
was it called that we went to? Wasn't the
what was it? Warrior Dash.
Warrior Dash. Yeah.
Okay.
But Jackie O's is the Athens, Ohio?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Jackie O's is there. Fantastic food if you do get the chance. So
what kind of beer? What kind of beer are theirs? Do you have? What is that?
Mystic Mama. It's a India Pale Ale. I bought that.
Aren't they all?
I got this on my way to a poker tournament that I played in. I went out in the first 8 hands.
You're a good man.
My $60 and lost in 8 hands.
You're a good man.
Goddamn pocket kings and ace king suited. I was done.
Well, we're going to talk about that later. I have that poker hand written down to talk about. So that's the only beer you got? Nothing homebrewed?
Oh yeah. I got a homebrewed. Remember that zombie dust clone I was telling you about where we got to get together?
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
Egged and ready to go.
That's it? Is that your first drink of it?
No, I've had it. I've had it. This is like my probably quite a bit now, but I have to say I've brewed this beer 2 or 3 times, and now that I've made tweaks to the recipe, I'm like, I don't want to say it's spot on, but it's damn good.
So right now it's just Brumley dust. It's just
I think I have it. I have it in the basement. In my basement on my kegerator, I have it labeled as Citra dust because it's an all Citra hop beer. So.
All right. Oh, I bought that Citra beer you had the other day. It's not a bad beer. Yeah,
it's a good one. I actually enjoy that one quite a bit.
I was going to bring it tonight just to give you my opinion, but you already had it, and
So what are you drinking, Mark?
I'm going a different direction. Chris is training, and I'm not. I'm going
monkey
shoulder whiskey.
That's good stuff.
Which is on almost every website or YouTube where they kind of give you a top 10 of the best whiskeys for the money. And some are 2 and 3 times the price of this. This is more expensive than I normally would buy, but it's still, up there. I, as you can see, I'm not a big whiskey drinker, but the bottle has been hit on a little bit.
Yep.
I
just polished off a bottle this past weekend. That's good stuff.
I would agree. And I got to tell you, I had a pretty good dinner and some Budweiser, nothing too fancy. And I just did not feel like, any more beer. And I thought, you know what? I'm just going to do me a shot here or 2 of the monkey shoulder and just call it a night. So that's what I'm going with. I would recommend it. I'm we've talked, and I know Joey knows I'm not a big whiskey guy. I always have some in the cabinet and always mix it with stuff and do all that. I'm not a shot guy. I mean, I'll do one here or there and blah, 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 but the monkey shoulder is very good. So it's like anything else. It's back, and I'll say even back to the home brewing. I mean, it grows on you, and any of that stuff can. Once you get into it and start realizing there's different and better, and that the $10 bottle of whiskey that you had when you were 20 22 or 20 or 19 and threw all up, you know, that has a different taste than something that's a $30 bottle. Or
I to this day I can't get into any kind of liquor, any of that. I just don't enjoy the way it tastes.
Oh, whiskey is the best. I can't do anything else. Like, I would probably throw up if you put like a shot of vodka or tequila in front of me, but whiskey, yeah.
All right.
The closest I can get is like Southern Comfort, and I know that probably don't even count.
Well, no, you know, that's my dad does Southern Comfort and 7-Up is my dad, and my dad drinks that nightly. And I do think, and I know you called a whiskey, and we've had this argument. I think we've had this specific argument before. They still call that a spirit, not a whiskey, and I think that's because it has other things added to it.
Oh, that's blended.
Spices.
Yeah, I mean it's got spices.
Yeah, it's like what's that shit called? Everybody, Jägermeister, where it's
right. It's not right. It's not, you know, it's just not direct. You know, it's not whiskey right from a thing. But
I never got the buzz. Like, what was the big deal about Jaeger? Like, what was the? I don't know. I never understood.
Dude, you put it in Red Bull. It was amazing.
I think that had nothing to do more than
it goes back to when you're young. That shit. Or I don't even want to say shit because I appreciate good whiskey, but you don't like the way any of it tastes. So any way you can mix it, I mean, pack it full of caffeine. I don't know. I like black licorice, and that's what I thought Jägermeister tasted like. So
okay, but I think it's like, is it Fireball? What's the big cinnamon one?
Goldschlager.
Kids now drink, huh?
Goldschlager or
no? I just think it's called Fireball, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it is just called. I think it's.
You
just
don't remember Goldschlager?
Fireball?
I remember Goldschlager. Yeah, with the flex and stuff in it, with the gold flex in it.
Oh yeah, dude, it cut your esophagus open so you can get drunk way faster. All the shit we believed when we were in high school.
I'm no idiot. I just soak my tampon in it. But that's just another, you know.
That does work though.
I don't know. based on what? You
never
Googled it?
Like, how would you know?
Yeah, that's what I'm just gonna say. Where did you come up with that one?
What happened?
I'm just making an educated guess.
Again, I appreciate the fantasy people that are out here that realize these combo shows, we just don't talk. I have 2 pages. We'll be lucky to come up with 2 regular questions off this thing.
Right.
So Southern Comfort is considered a liqueur. I'm looking up Jaeger. I can't spell Jaeger. I don't have any
It's Jaeger is like Jaeg.
All right. But Joey, like I got it. But the question of the week, we're going to go right to the question of the week because the question of the week has to do with this exact thing. This person asked if they want to get into brewing, and I'm going to use the word in air quotes, and maybe spirits, can they buy the right equipment at the beginning? So if they want to go from home brewing to spirit making, can they, you know what I'm saying? What is the equipment? Can it be the same versus meaning they don't have to invest in 2 different kits? You know, they already know that they want to do both. So if they came into your store, how would you walk them through what they would need versus just a couple buckets?
Sure. So you're saying if they want to eventually make spirits?
Right. This customer is asking, they're saying, I don't brew yet, but I got an idea in my mind that I'm going to want to do beer and maybe spirits. So what kind of a kit do I need that will allow me to do both if that's even possible?
So fermentation equipment, whether you get a beer kit or anything, you're covered there. So whether you get a beer kit, a wine kit, or cider kit, you're good on fermenters. The mash and boil and the grain father, which are 2 systems we've discussed quite a bit, which are electric, actually have a lid and a distillation head that you can make spirits with them. So if you are wanting to think long-term about it, I would recommend the mash and boil just because it's going to be the most economic for the price. But the grain father, if you want to, if money is no object, is also a good solution. You can use those to make your own spirits. So that's not a problem. You can also brew beer in both of those units.
All right. So, and I'd assume cost wise, then maybe just a hair more than just doing the basic buckets. I mean, well, I mean, I know for less than $100 roughly, you can brew beer. Is that enough to get into spirits also?
No. I mean, yes and no. There are, when you start talking spirits, you know, there are kits that you can get on Amazon or you can make yourself. I've seen people do it with crock pots. I mean, if you want to get in the DIY side of things, you can get into making spirits fairly inexpensively. But if you want to do it right, like like I said, we sell a unit in the store that's it's like $189. That's just for making spirits. So the mash and boil, it's $299. So for $100 more, you're basically making it doing a dual purpose solution.
Okay. All right. I thought that was a good question because I kind of thought it was the same. I've always heard that the difference in whiskey and beer happens towards the end of the process. At the beginning is very...
I believe, like, if you go to the Jack Daniel's plant, I believe when you go there, they actually call it beer before they turn it to liquor. So, like, a lot of brewers are called a wash, but, like, Jack Daniel's calls it beer before they turn it into a spirit.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense, yeah.
All right.
And all spirits come out. All spirits, whether it's whiskey or anything like that, they all come out clear through the distillation unit. They get that color from the oak barrels are aged in.
All right. Well, I think that'll help the customer, and I think that's, I think that was their question. Just like I said, if they wanted to get into it, would they be locked into doing one or the other based on the kit they bought?
I'd recommend getting the same starter kit you would for beer, but picking up a mash and boil. And like I said, you would also need the distillation unit that goes with it as well. But you would be good to go if, say, you just want to start with beer and thinking long term with it. If eventually you want to do spirits, then that we can.
And I know we talked about wine kits. We talked about wine kits shows back. Is any of that equipment?
Well, just the fermentation and transferring side of things, the hydrometer and all that good stuff. Because I mean, all distillation really is you're taking something that's probably in the vicinity of 10 to 15% alcohol, and you're evaporating the straight ethanol from it and leaving behind a lot of the water. So anything at some point when you make liquor, you still have to ferment. I call it wine, but the distillation people call it a wash. It's just basically just a sugary concoction that's like wine that you'll then distill.
All right. Thanks for the information. Hope that helps. The next thing is back to the Wimbledon thing. And I don't want to get in trouble or anything like that, but the big deal was Serena making it. This was, one of her big majors, coming back from having a child. If I'm not mistaken, roughly a year ago.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
And hey, I don't want to say the women announcers on ESPN were sure making a big deal out of it. And I've listened to a few other sportscasters, male, that are like, come on, in the old days, women used to have a baby and just go right on and keep sewing or, have dinner ready afterwards. How big a deal is it with today's technology and medicine that one of the major athletes in our country has a child and then a year later she's back to 100%? Should we be surprised?
I don't think so. I mean, like you just mentioned, with the today's technology, medicine, if you already know going in that your body is going to go through this massive change, you can prepare for it. And if her body has been more or less, I don't want to say trained to operate in a certain way, but that's kind of the sense that's where I'm headed with this. But if that's the way her body is kind of trained to operate, of course she would kind of go back to that regimen as soon as she possibly can. She's one of the world's, not just the country, she's one of the world's top athletes, not just
and they say of women of all time.
Yeah, and that's
she's phenomenal. I enjoy watching her. I guess Absolutely. What I'm saying is, in my mind, a little bit, especially if she had won. So I don't know. Joey probably didn't watch. She didn't win, and that was a big deal. She was, ranked like 126th, which everyone knows that's bullshit. She was ranked that low because she hadn't played.
Right.
But,
so everybody wanted to see her win.
Right. But my opinion was like one of these other announcers was saying they almost blew it up so much that even if she'd have won, they would have made such a big deal out of it that it would, I'm not going to use the word take away from it, but at the same time, make the achievement seem greater than it was versus just a great tennis player winning a tennis tournament. I don't know. I noticed it. I watched the whole, the last 3 or 4, I watched the tournament for the whole 2 weeks, but I watched all the semifinals and all that. They just played that to the, to the nines, and I even got like do I care anymore that she had a baby? You know, I mean, and she did have, in her defense, she had some other illnesses along with the pregnancy, but you know, go ahead, Joe. I'm your opinion as a non-sports person.
Okay, so the first thing is, I remember this was years ago. Wasn't there like some supermodel who did like either a swimsuit or Playmate?
Yeah, some of them do that like 2 days before the baby's born.
2 weeks after they have, no, not that, but the opposite. You know, right after they had the baby, and she was like, you know, remember what I'm talking about? I mean, it was like in the best shape ever.
I'm sure there are. I don't remember a name.
I thought I remember that, but the next step would be, I mean, nowadays it's very common for women to be very, very fit even during the pregnancy. Right. Like you had said, Mark, you know, in the good old days, you know, you got pregnant and you did, you know, you fed the baby and whatever. Now I see all the time where it's very common for women to get in, not even, well, I guess I would say women because men can't get pregnant, but women to get into fitness because they are pregnant and they keep very good care of their body through the pregnancy. So, I mean, the fact that she's out there playing tennis, I don't think anyone should really, I mean,
well, but this is a year later. She had the baby. I mean, it's not like she didn't. She really didn't even play tennis while she was pregnant. I mean, she didn't. She did early on, obviously, but then she, you know, she had to, you know, give it up. And then, and she, I don't know. I mean, Chris, how much you followed it? I mean, she gained a lot of weight. You know, I mean, she became very big. You know, which is fine. I'm not even disagreeing that. She's back in shape. She looked great.
Well, I just remember, you know, and I'm gonna get into deep shit for even bringing this up.
I think we're already deep shit bringing it up. Three men talking about it, but I just found it as a sports fan. It took away a little bit.
Well, I guess what
of the event.
Remember when the Lance Armstrong stuff came down, where you know he tested positive for roids,
and he was actually doing it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, didn't they test like 13 other people that were in the top 20 with him that all tested positive as well?
They all were doing drugs.
So wait, one roided guy beat the other roided guys. Who gives a shit?
I agree.
Yeah,
they should have been doing monkey shoulder.
My point is, you know, back to, you know, everything they're talking about with her. Just let her play tennis and let her go back to her game. Who cares if she had a baby?
Well, some of it.
Like, who cares if he was taking steroids? The rest of them were. You got to have an edge.
Right.
Whatever.
Okay, we'll go there then. Because back to, I know this is not a sports thing, but Joey would have his, I mean, there's talk now, especially in baseball and some of these other sports, are that we're never going to get ahead of the PEDs / steroids type chemicals. So do we just allow it? And then these athletes, you know, deal with it on their own. You know, we know steroids have a bad effect on your body and large things. We just know that because that's a drug we've had for years, and it is a long time, and it is a drug that's been studied. Some of these other things are new. We don't know. They truly just might be a drug that, you know, a human benefits from. We don't know that there's even side effects for some of them. Is your opinion we should just allow them all to do what they want to do? And that's just part of being an athlete that you have to accept? Or do we have to try to keep them kind of within some boundaries to protect themselves?
Can I go first?
Go.
I think yes, because back to, I know in the news, I get bits and pieces of things, but there was a football player who just recently died in high school or college or something and they found out he was only like 25 and he had, was it like CTE or what's that abbreviation for CTE, concussions?
Right.
So if we're going to let professionals who we know we are destroying their brains in concussions, then roid them up. I mean, they already know that they're destroying.
Well, some people's argument is they are getting so bigger and stronger because of steroids. Even in high school and colleges, they're finding steroids, that these kids are getting so much bigger and stronger that's part of the problem. But they're saying that's part of the problem of the steroid or the brain injuries are because these guys are getting, you know, where a guy normally didn't get hit from a guy 6 yards away. That guy now from 6 yards away can get up to 30 mile an hour. You know what I'm saying? That's you know what, but Chris knows that if you watch football a lot in the last 10 years, the difference is night and day speed wise, you know? So that's part of the problem. Some people think the steroids are part of the problem, that these athletes have gotten much bigger, much stronger. And that's, you know, they're getting hit when they normally wouldn't.
I know this isn't like a parallel, but I watched a good documentary on honey, and they say like 90% of the honey we eat these days is not real honey because they China imports a great amount of our honey, and they used to have ways, but they're always beating our testing equipment. And so, like with the athletes, okay, yeah, they can test for steroids, but they're just going to find something else, some other substance that does the same thing that beats the system.
Right. Which is the
argument. At the end of the day, I'm not saying you should just blindly ignore it and let these people, turn into brick walls. But at the same point in time,
the problem with making it legal is
when they know when they play that sport, it's dangerous, and they put their body on. Think of the WW, for fake wrestling, those people just destroy their bodies. I mean, in every way, shape, or form. They know it when they do it.
And you said it. I'll even put the WWE or F in the non-sports category, but they are athletes. Mm-hmm. If I'm not mistaken, as a percentage, more of them die.
Yep.
Even than any other athlete that we have is in that
and
field.
The problem is they don't test.
But
the problem is they don't test whatsoever.
But you're the one that said yes, let them do it. But then the problem is, at what age do you let them do it? You got a kid that's in, freshman in high school that's a great, baseball player at his high school. Do you allow him to do it? Because unfortunately, the next 2 or 3 years when he moves to become a senior and the colleges are looking at him, he already needs to be, better, faster, stronger. So at what age? And he may not even be a professional. And unfortunately, he already had to do the steroids to even see if he met those standards. Isn't that the problem you run into?
If I got to shoot from the hip, I'd say 18. They're an adult. If that's their decision, once they become an adult, it's whatever. Now, if mom and dad's doing it so they can get a scholarship, that's totally wrong. That's child endangerment, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. Child abuse.
Or
Chris,
whatever.
I'm not sure you answered the question. Do you think PEDs should be in sports, or should we try to keep them out of the best we can? And some people just say, though, that's never going to work.
I don't think it's ever going to work, because you got to think about the fact that these athletes, this is pretty much all they've got in terms of making money. Some of them don't have, I would say a large portion of them don't have any other type of financial situation for them to fall back on. So that's the first thing to consider. But the second thing to consider, especially when it comes to PEDs, or what type of PEDs are we talking about? We're talking about painkillers, we're talking about narcotics, we're talking about stimulants. There's so many drugs that fall under the PED umbrella that I think really the problem is that we, as the people that are using them, we don't have the proper information or knowledge to say that this is actually the thing that you should be using. So right. I would say that, I agree in the sense that we shouldn't be using PEDs, because PEDs, they are chemical substances that are changing the way that our body functions, which also has been shown to increase the number, or I guess the chance of you becoming more violent, more aggressive. And that's where you see a lot of these football players, or just not necessarily football players, because I don't want to put the stigma on just the NFL, but just athletes in general that are involved in some of these violent and aggressive acts when it comes to domestic violence, domestic abuse, and cases of that nature. So I'd say that if anything, we just need to understand them better, because a lot of folks will just say, if it's steroids, get it out of here. But I think the simplest solution, I think the most logical solution at this point, let them smoke weed. Why can't you just let them smoke weed?
I agree. I agree with the
that seems to be like the most.
The NFL in the near future, that's not going to happen.
But I'm just saying that it's easier to me if we want to try and come to a compromise in terms of the safety of not just the players, but their families, fans, other folks that can come in contact with them. And it just seems like that's the simplest thing in order to make sure that they're
based on your answer. What if they just said, we're going to allow these three? Do you think that a professional guy is capable of saying, okay, we know these three are as safe as can be, and we know you guys are going to be used anyway, so we're going to make these three legal. But if you test for something else, then you could be penalized.
Insert some medicine here and say that, well, we've done our research and these are the side effects and these are the things. If the NFL or whichever athletic governing body says that these are the side effects and we've proved them and you can use them, then use that. Okay. And then everybody assumes the risk. But then if you find out that if they find out that you've been using some other substance,
and to me, then make the penalty even harsher. Meaning,
Absolutely.
we're going to allow you guys to do these because we know they're a little more controlled. Back to legalizing drugs in general in the public. Meaning, if we legalize the drug to at least for the minimum, so we can keep track of who's doing what and help you manage it. Back to, hey, we know this guy's taking this steroid and we think he's got issues. No, what?
I'm all for getting more knowledge. That's what I think is lacking.
Joey's saying no. Joey's saying no, and I don't understand what he's saying no about.
I look at the enhancing performance drugs that they use, no different than guns. It either shoots a bullet or it don't. If it is affecting your play, whether it's a numbing agent or a building bigger muscle mass, to me, drugs are drugs. If you're using them, you're using them. For any other reason, I mean, where do you draw the line in the sand? Okay, we tested these don't have side effects. We're going to be wrong. They're going to go back. They're going to change the rules. What are they going to do? Are they going to take back all these records? I mean, let's face it. In the past, athletes across the board used. I'm sure there's athletes that played baseball in the good old days that probably were doing a ton of coke to play the double headers. There's just no way. There's just no way to keep track of it. I mean, you either allow it or you don't allow it.
Well, but you say that, but there are ways for them to do testing to know for sure what's in your system and say, okay, he's got legal stuff in, we're fine, versus even down to marijuana. They can test to know that it's marijuana in your system and not cocaine. So we do have that technology.
We talked about that. We talked about that with poker. I mean, you're looking for an edge. And all you're creating is just like the honey or just like poker. If you allow these three, well, we know these ones don't test on the equipment they're using.
But now you're chasing testing equipment.
Speed
limit. So now you're saying we shouldn't have a speed limit because it's 65. They're going to go 70. So we might as well make it 70. But then we do that, it's going to be you can have limits. And if people go over or past those limits, they can be penalized.
Well, no, we had those cameras that used to take your picture and would send you a ticket in the mail. And they did away with those because they realized.
Well, that's
one of those tickets just showed up at my house last week. So no, they did not get rid of those in downtown Dayton.
It depends on which state and which county.
Depends on where you live.
Downtown Dayton. Downtown Dayton. Just got one came in the mail 2 weeks ago.
They're gone.
You can say they're gone, but they're not. I also saw them in Riverside just within the last 30 days. Yes,
stands. They no longer send you tickets.
I got one in the mail.
Well, good for you. I'm telling you,
you're saying they quit this morning because they got $85.
Tear it up.
Going 75 mile an hour downtown Dayton around First Street on 75. I mean,
tear it up, throw it away.
No, I paid it. End of story. I don't get you. Based on what? Because I know you're wrong.
You do?
They're gone. Yeah, maybe in your driveway, but they're not gone in Ohio. So, all right, whatever. Chris, he's wrong. I believe that they could do it with some basic, regulation, and actually help, help the. It's back to the marijuana and creatine and some of these things. I'm sorry, creatine has been tested enough that it's not even. Is there a benefit to the body? Maybe, but it's not harmful either. Does it help a little? My point is they could legalize.
So hold on. This news I'm reading the most recent news article. A small town, blah 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 blah. A court ruled the speed trap has to pay back more than $3 million in automatic speeding tickets.
And you Googled that?
Googled that. I went to IamRight.com and I found the first article that proved that.
There you go. Trust me. I know that website well. It's in your family.
I found the first article that made me right. I clicked on.
I'm just telling you.
I'm there. I'm telling you. I the old school ones.
Let's move on.
They're no longer in operation.
We're going to move on to the World Series of Poker because Joey brought it up. I know I've talked to Joey a little bit. Are you still behind on the World Series?
Yeah, someone spoiled it for me. Thanks, Dad.
Chris,
I know.
Did you watch it all? Do you know what happened?
I didn't watch it all. I saw the big hand. Joey and I talked about it earlier.
Okay, so you guys already talked about it. Well, then we'll just bring it up quick and go through it then, because the big argument was should the gentleman, all right, here's the hand, and I'm not going to tell 100% correctly, but odds are someone woke up with, and this was when they were down to 10 players.
Yeah, to make the final table.
The final table, and 9, once you were number 9, you were guaranteed $1 million. From what I understand, this hand's probably worth a couple $100,000, because I think 700,000, 780, 708,000, something like that was 10th place.
Just a couple $100,000.
So a couple $100,000. The hands come out. The first guy to act, and this is the only order I know, gets pocket kings. So he puts in a raise. Then someone else wakes up with pocket aces. He obviously bumps it a little more. The other pocket kings calls, if I'm not mistaken. That comes back to the kings. He raises 4 times now again. Then the and now that I think about it, I think he went all in. The aces called the all in. Now that I recall right. The key is the last guy to act has just pocket kings. At that point, do you have to assume one of them have an ace? And at best, you know, you got to hope that if he has ace king or ace queen. But a lot of the pros are saying the way it was played, no way anybody had even ace queen. It had to either be ace king, aces, or kings. So they all say it kind of played out the way that you should know. The key is, should that third guy have folded his hand, or should he have called, which he did. So we already know how the hand, because obviously when all the kings are already out on the board and you know, the pocket aces.
He was drawing dead.
Right. The other problem is the third guy to act had king of hearts, ace of spades, or king of hearts, king of spades. The other guy that had the aces had ace of hearts, ace of spades. So he didn't even have a shot with the straight. So even with a straight coming out, so he was done anyway. But the hand obviously played out, the aces won. The big argument with everybody after that was that far down the tournament, that much money on the line, after 2 acts on the hand, including an all in and a call of the all in, should you, or could you, do you fold the kings there, or do you go all in?
Man, I think it's hindsight being 2020. I mean, that should preface any answer. I mean, I don't care who you are. I mean, but the only thing that I would need to know is if the last guy to act, I forget how much he had sitting behind him after he made his.
They all were very similar in chips.
Yeah.
So there wasn't even a big chip difference here. But he was the lowest. So he was the last guy to act, who ended up the one he left the tournament. That's the point.
But I thought by the time that it came down to the final decision on whether or not he was going to call the aces, like when that guy had pushed everybody all in, I wasn't sure if he was down to 50% of his stack or if he didn't have much left and he was just, well, I'm already this far, I'm already this deep, so why not just make the call?
That is other people's argument. Other people's argument that are saying he should was based on the amount of pot already committed. Other people are like, it doesn't matter. The old chip in a chair. If you sit there and you go, yeah, it is, but it's the truth. I mean, and we're talking $200,000. So the point would be, with the way the hand was played out, most poker players should be able to go, one of them bastards at a minimum has at least one ace. So even in a race, I'm going to have to beat an ace coming out.
Yeah.
And if one of the two have an ace king, I probably already have one king gone. So the pros I heard talk about it were already saying those were the options. Even if that's what happens, you still are probably in a race for $200,000 versus
way behind
versus you make it to the final table, because the other guy did make it to the final table with very minimal chips, and he did go out first the next night. So, I only brought it up too because Joey says hands like that on live poker online are because it's rigged. They want everybody's money in so they can take more rake.
That's correct.
But my point was, this was a live. It was live action. It really happened. And people, I hear that all the time. People who watch online say it's rigged. That never been a poker game in my life where king and ace and king came out. Well, it does happen. I mean. And this was a point. This wasn't one of those hands recorded and edited later. This was live, and it was fun to watch. I enjoyed it. And And then I did watch the final table. I watched, I shouldn't say the whole thing. I recorded it because I eventually went to bed about 1 o'clock in the morning. I'm glad they went back to this, and I don't even know. And Joey kind of made me get back into poker this year, so I guess I was more interested. I haven't watched the World Series of Poker the last few years because when they switched it to that November 9, where I would commit to watch in 8 weeks and then not even get to watch who wins it, you got to wait. And then my point would be, why they did that. Well, they did it for TV. You know, in November there was a lull for ESPN at some point, and they knew that would get them some ratings on some Tuesday nights. So I tapped out at that point. So this year when that was happening, I was pretty neat. The ESPN had it all live. It was on 10-minute delay. Estevari was the magician was the announcer. He was excellent. He was very good. But the point was, I went to bed at 1 o'clock and set the recorder, figuring I'll get up and watch it in the morning. Unfortunately, I get up in the morning, I turn on ESPN just, to go to the DVR to see what's on, and they're still playing. At like 8:30, I think it was about 7:30, 8 o'clock, I turned on, they were still playing. And I even looked at that point, their chips were pretty long. So they played almost all through the night. They played almost 12 hours heads up, with very little chip movement. And then I got to watch the final hand live. So it was kind of fun. I enjoyed that. And at that point, Phil Hellmuth was the announcer. Edition had enough. So I enjoyed it. I would recommend. I enjoy watching that kind versus the tape delay edited crap where, they
Juan McCarran and makes his wisecrack jokes about his ex-wives. And
I'm sorry. He's still hysterical. He's entertaining. I like him.
I think it's good that they changed it I think you guys talked about it early on in the podcast, but it's no longer called the November 9. It's now just
the 9.
Final 9 because you get straight to it. I think that's way better because it doesn't give the opponents 6 months or however long it is to study up on all their opponents. It's like a regular tournament. You go, you made the final table, let's play, shuffle up and deal. Right. I think that's the way it should be. I do like how they changed that this year. It happened so quick, and Nick Schulman is who I listen to through most of the broadcast, who's a very good poker player, and I found the whole thing entertaining. As far as was it King King, King King, Ace Ace, or was it Ace Ace, Ace Ace, King King?
It was King Aces King. Aces was in the middle. Yeah. So the last Kings, the lowest chip guy.
2 people have pocket aces, or 2 people have King King, or King.
2 people had King King.
Yeah.
2 people had King King, and the middle guy had aces.
Yeah, that's why the kings were drawing dead, because the other guy had his 2 kings, and then the other guy that had aces had him pointed on both of his.
On his suits.
Yeah.
So he couldn't even catch suits. Then 2 clubs came out, which gave the one guy that had the king of clubs a little bit of an out. Right. But then the next card was not a club. He would have had to catch 4 clubs.
Yeah. I still chalk that up, and it's real simple. Probably most of those players, if not all those players. I do know Joe Cata made it to the final table.
Yeah, he went out 4th.
Who was probably, I thought it was 5th, but I was probably the only known poker player at the final table. When you're on TV, let's face it, you don't want to look like a fish. So to fold kings on national television, I'm sorry, I'm probably going to fit that criteria of, even though $200,000 is a lot of money, I don't want to be that guy who folded
I'm disagreeing
kings.
With you in this fact is they had already played 7 days. I'm sorry, on the 7th day, 6 hours in, you're not thinking of TV cameras. I don't think. I think, and they interviewed the guy. He felt he was pot committed. He felt he was pot committed.
I know.
I'm not saying that's wrong either.
I know Vanessa Selpst, or whatever her name is, who's like known as one of the best. She's the best female poker player, if not one of the top, just poker players in general. People ripped her a new one because she busted the tournament bluffing. And so they talked about that on the broadcast, is when every decision that you make in poker is so scrutinized, it puts the pressure on, where I'm going to defend, when you're on television and these poker nerds are breaking down every single hand, just like we have. We're not even poker nerds for 20 minutes. These players play differently than if they were just playing in a Poker Stars,
They play different because it's the biggest tournament in the world. They play different because it's the biggest tournament in the world. TV did not come into play in this hand.
Tournament in the world. I believe the one.
Hold on, I'm going to imright.com right now.
Okay. Well, the one drop who Antonio Esfandiari won is like 13. It's like $13 million for first place. That's the biggest tournament.
Yeah. What did the guy get? Was it 8 million?
What's that?
What did he get? What did the winner get? Did he get 8 million?
The winner in the World Series was a little over 8 million.
Yeah.
But
second place.
I'm not. Again, I know you always throw money in it. No, money has nothing to do with it. When people, if you say I'm a poker champion, people will look into you. World Series of Poker. That's when you say you're the World Series of Poker champion. That's what people think. People do not think of the WPT and all those. No, I'm a poker champion from the $1,500 buy-in. Raz. Yes, you are still the champion, but that's not what people think. It's the World Series of Poker. It's on ESPN. Money maker made popular. That's what people think. Yeah. That's why it's the #1 poker tournament.
But there's a World Series of Poker Europe. There's a zillion other. I'm telling you that it's just like in.
I tell you, I like
stealing this from a movie. At the end of the day, it's about money. It's who wins the most money. I mean, that's the biggest tournament. Who's willing to put up?
No, it's not.
That's why I think the one drop. I think the one drop's perfect. It's $1 million buy-in. You got to come to the table with $1 million, which means you either have to have some heavy investors who believe in you, or you need to be very successful at poker to afford $1 million buy-in.
So now, what are we discussing right now? What's the most popular tournament, what proves the best poker player?
You said what
proves the best?
Biggest
the most famous
that's not what you said.
Tournament in the world. No, I did. I said it's the biggest poker tournament in the world, meaning it's the most popular. That's what people think of when they think of poker tournament.
You said biggest poker tournament of the year.
That's what it is. It is the biggest, the most players, the most famous, the most advertised. That's it.
Not the biggest payday. It's not.
You can go to imwrong.com and look that shit up.
I'm just telling you. Not the biggest poker tournament.
Whatever. I got third the other day in a 10-cent tournament. I was excited.
There you go.
There you go.
I won my $48. And I was pissed, but that's all right. I had fun.
You got lucky with Queen 9. I did see that hand versus Queen 10. You turned a 9. You both thought it was Queen Deuce Deuce, and the turn was a 9. So you shouldn't even made it even remotely close to the final table.
No, I still had chips at that point. The worst case, I was still going to have 200,000 chips when I called that.
Well, I seen it. I'm just saying. You said you had bad luck. I didn't.
It's a poker tournament. You've played poker tournaments. No one wins a poker tournament and doesn't say there was a hand or two that I got lucky. I'm not arguing that. But my argument would be I didn't make a wrong move. I pushed that guy all in. He called.
Fair enough.
It takes. We've had that argument before. It takes a better hand to call than it does to raise. And I raised with King 9 or with Queen 9 of hearts, and he had a Queen 10, and I caught the 9. I'm not arguing at all, but I still would have had 200,000 chips. Still would have been at the final table. So
I know I've been nothing but donating right now.
Been there, done that.
Yeah.
So all right. I got a question for both of you. This is important because I want to know if it's going to be if this is going to be the same or if it's going to be different. You can give me 2 foods or 1 food, Chris and Joe.
All right.
If you could pick a food,
curry.
Just one food that you could immediately click your fingers and that food no longer has any calories. And or what food, if you could only have one food, would you want to have on a deserted island with you for the rest of your life? So is it the same food or is that 2 different answers for you guys?
2 different answers for me.
All right. So, Chris, what's the food? If you could turn any food right now into a non-calorie food, meaning you could eat as much of it you want, it just wouldn't matter, what would that food be?
Nachos.
Nachos, which I think is about 97 ingredients. I'm talking one food here, but that's okay.
But so one dish. It's one dish.
All right. So if you could turn one food into a non-calorie, technically a healthy food, it would be nachos.
Nachos.
All right. Now, so if you're on a deserted island, you can only have one food. It would not be nachos. I guess it would be. Jesus Christ, like I said, there are about 9 foods in there. So what if you're on a deserted island? What's that one food you're hoping to have?
I can't think of anything off the top of my head that I would want to have. Come back to me. Go ahead. Let Joey answer.
Obviously, I would have thought nachos would be the closest to the list. Joey, I don't know if you understand the question.
I do.
What food, if you could turn any into a non-calorie or / a healthy food right now, what food would that be? And what food would you want to have on a deserted island for the rest of your life? Would it be the same?
No.
All right. So what one are you going to say right now would have no calories?
Potatoes.
Potatoes.
Yeah. I mean, think of all the
potatoes hardly have any calories to begin with, to a point.
But when you deep fry them, they don't.
Well, then, okay, then now
when you smother them in butter and cheddar cheese sauce.
Now you went a different direction. Then I might just say I don't want oil to have any calories. Now I can deep fry everything.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
So now it's not the potatoes anymore.
Is oil
vegetable
food?
oil. I don't know.
Is oil a food?
I don't know. I know on the internet the number one answer to the first one was pizza. By far, people. I could go the rest of my life and
that has 97 foods in it.
And I'm not going to argue that, but by
especially
far, pizza
sauce from 70,000 jars.
Pizza by far was the number one food that if someone could turn a food into a healthy / non-calorie food, they would want it to be pizza.
That doesn't count. You said
I thought the same thing.
That's why I said potato.
I agree, but he said nacho. So
I was on the right track that everybody else had because they said
I know answering the question.
Because I agree with Joey. I agree pizza is not a good answer, but I think the way the question was worded, people were assuming a dish. But
I was going to say
it is America. People are stupid. People just think pizza is a food. The pizza.
Part two on deserted island, I guess, which is kind of the same question is. For years, I would have said chicken wings because
chicken wings. I would chicken wings for no calories. I would like that. I think.
But no, deserted island. Think about it. Chicken wings. There's so many different ways you can go with chicken wings.
Now, and I think we're all on the same page because I don't think my food on a deserted island would be the same. Because I do think when I'm thinking of on a deserted island that I have to have a food that one is going to keep me fairly healthy and fairly stable for the next 10 or 15 years. I don't think you can say chicken wings or pizza. I do think on a deserted island, the answer has to be something, I'd hate to use the word kale, but corn. Corn goes in and comes out the same shape. That tells me it does nothing inside my body.
That doesn't help.
We weren't talking about nutrition.
I know. Well, no, I think on the first one, nutrition doesn't matter. I think when it's on a deserted island and you only have one food to eat, nutrition has to be a part of that. So would you want a fruit tree?
Are these magic grits? I mean, what are we
Grits might be up there. Grits might be there. I'm just saying. Now let's just say one ingredient then. Chris, you're on a deserted island. What's the one? Would you want an orange? Would you want grapefruit, coconuts, abundancy, grapes?
Yeah,
Budweiser,
apple.
Okay, I think health-wise, you could live on an apple. Huh? I mean, an apple a day keeps the doctor away, and there's no damn doctors on an island. That's for sure.
I mean,
it works out.
Since we're talking just absolutely ridiculous,
it is absolutely. I know. I wanted to throw that out there though.
I've got a question for you, Chris.
What's up?
Did we ever go to the moon?
Yes.
Yes.
No.
Yes, we did.
No, we did not.
Go back to your website.
Okay. Let me go. Hold on.
We did.
Let me go to part 2.
No.
The footage we seen, was any of that faked?
No.
Now that I don't know.
Okay.
It's edited. Everything you see on TV is produced. And
that's what I'm saying. I think we went. We probably just didn't go when we said we went.
Okay, so you do know like half the moon rocks that were given out, they've proven were petrified wood. Right? Like
I've heard that, but that's marketing too. That has nothing to do with our government. That just has to do with somebody can sell a fucking pet rock is going to sell a moon rock.
Multiple Apollo missions in the footage, you can see wires clearly dangling the astronauts. Clearly,
I'm watching too many documentaries. Man.
Yeah.
I mean, whatever. We didn't go to the moon.
Enjoy Netflix.
We didn't go to the moon. For the hat.
I'm telling you, there's probably a better chance that there's aliens than we went to the moon.
Jim Jeffries
aliens.
Jim Jeffries has another Netflix special. I'd recommend it.
Statistically speaking, I'd say there's better odds of alien life forms than we went to the moon. Because there's some radiation belt. How the hell would we ever get through? It's not possible.
But that's my argument is though. the belief there are alien life to me is 100% possible. So
no, the only reason,
even that argument, I believe there's something else in this whatever we want to call it, where there's some other living form. Is it as smart, as bright, big, small? Who knows? There's living things out there.
The only reason why I brought it up was there was a guy who claimed you did not technically need food to live. You just needed sunlight. That was it. Seriously,
we're not plants.
Like 100 years old. He ate like his last meal. I don't remember what it was.
You need water.
Okay, I'm telling you, a guy claimed,
and he's wrong.
Everyone's always wrong to you. I'm telling you, this is what he claimed, and then some woman decided she was going to do the same and died of starvation.
Of course she did.
So if we're going to speak of a hypothetical, if you're deserted on a desert island and no one's there, what are you going to eat? I'm going with
mine is much more simple of a question. Mine is, if you're on a deserted island, what's the one food you'd want to have there?
I'm saying
is it the same as the food you would make?
I'm telling you, if I'm on a deserted island, I'm either going to find something to make me so high that I can just go drown myself out of boredom. I'm not really worried too much about food at that point.
You should be. It's like the number one thing you should be worried about. I really believe that a good IPA, I do think a good IPA, I think you could live off of a good IPA, couldn't you? There's calories, there's sugars, there's grains, there's malt, it's got water. Yeah, I really believe you could live off of a good IPA.
It only made me think of because what was the guy who did Clerks? Kevin
Kevin
Smith. Thank you. Kevin Smith had a heart attack, which don't get him started on or Google anything he did, but we went to a dietitian, and the dietitian made him only eat potatoes for 1 week. And then he only was allowed to eat corn for 2 weeks. And he said, but you weren't allowed to boil it, or you were allowed to boil it. You were allowed to cook it. You just weren't allowed to deep fry it. You weren't allowed to add any other ingredients. So you could just eat potatoes, so forth and so on. And what Kevin Smith said, what he learned was how to fast. Because when you could say, oh, you can have potatoes, but you can't deep fry them, you can't do this, you stop eating because you want to eat. You start eating because you're so fucking hungry, you have to eat whatever. He went to a doctor who said, that's a horrible diet, don't do it. You're gonna kill you just had a heart attack. You're gonna kill yourself doing this because you're not getting the proper nutrients, blah, 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 blah. But he said he was more a proponent of fasting. And your body does shit when it fasts. They've learned is way better than any diet you can basically be on. And so that's why I said potatoes, was because he says someone who, love potato chips, love this, love that. But when you put some criteria behind it, you can live indefinitely off of just eating potatoes is what I'm saying. You're going to be slender and you're going to, look fit because potatoes without butter and sour cream and all the salt and all that shit's pretty boring.
Well, yeah, your body has to be used to that type of stuff, though, because typically, if you don't inject calories into your system, your body goes into starvation mode and holds on to those calories, so you don't actually drop weight. So, unless your body gets used to I'm gonna fast for so many hours and then eat a little bit and then fast or whatever, your body won't get into that cycle where it knows what to do with the energy that it has stored. That's what that's what I've learned. That's what I've learned from other folks that do, like, for physical fitness and all that. That's what some guys do in order to either bulk up or, like, when they cut in order to drop weight. Some of them like to fast. I do that myself, but I've gotten into doing that, and, like, so my body knows that.
That's because you're a racer.
Yeah, hell yeah. Especially when I was doing it, like, more like hardcore, from, like, from 6 p.m. till, like, until lunch the next day, like, when I worked out, that was my fast period. It was, like, almost like 16 hours. But, like, for the first, like, 2 weeks, I thought I was going to die because I wasn't eating, and I felt terrible. But, like, your body just has to get used to it so it can respond to that, that deficit in calories, or else, like you said, that woman, she died. Because her body just wasn't used to it. She probably went into shock.
Died. All right, let's go on to something much more important. Have either one of you played Pokemon Go?
No, I'm too old for that shit.
No, a lot of adults play it. Do you know what it is?
Yes, I know what it is. I'm telling you, I'm not saying other folks are. I'm saying I am.
I'm telling you, I don't even know what it is.
Okay, it's an app on your phone.
I know
it's
it was
an app on your phone
about a year ago.
It's an app on your phone where in your choice, maybe you and your son would go out and you try to collect these Pokemons and you go in the real world. It's your cell phone in the real world. You move the cell phone has hints and tips on the app to tell you where you can find a Pikachu somewhere, and you go there and you capture it by the camera of your phone.
So it's like geocaching, but for nerds.
Well, no. I have seen my kids all did it. My kids would get in the car and drive off. And I go, where are you going? Oh, we just heard there's a such and such down the street.
Yeah. Have you ever geocached?
Yes, we have. We've done that. And it is similar, but the game, they've actually really updated this game to be, you literally move your phone around and you won't see anything. And all of a sudden you'll turn it this way and there's a Pokemon on the screen. VR is not the right term, but they incorporate your camera and the app and the environment. It's actually kind of cool if you've seen it done. Chris, this is where I'm going. Would you play or consider playing a fantasy sports game /go? Meaning your team would be collected by things you did or places you went. Meaning, the odds. It's back to the Pokemon thing. You go to Kings Island, you can collect Pikachus all over damn Kings Island because there's a lot more people there. So I'm assuming a fantasy go, if you go to a Reds game, you might be able to collect a couple players there. If you go, to a football game, there might be players there. My point would be an interactive game where you collect and you build your lineup by physically going out, following the clues on the app, doing that. And you're playing, let's say, against, a league of, let's say, 6 or 8 other people that are doing the same thing to try to build the best team. So then on Sunday or during the week you're physically building your team. I'm, kind of like collecting baseball cards. Back in the old day, there was a game where you would collect your baseball cards and you would lay them out like a real baseball game. And then you would roll dice. And there was ways, based on how you rolled the dice, you would look at a guy's baseball card to know what might have happened. So kind of like that, but the app would be a fantasy go app where it'd be a little bit, you're still, and maybe even do a draft. And then it's preliminary players out there. I'm just, just this Pokemon Go thing made me think, would there be an aspect of a fantasy sport? Because I'm sorry, we can debate if Pokemon is you're too old for that. But Pokemon is still a fantasy game, no more than fantasy football or fantasy baseball. So could something like this? Yes, it is.
No.
Could something like that? Is that something you'd even think about doing? Something where you wouldn't do it?
Because it's not the same as fantasy sports. Because
no, it's not. It's different. I'm not saying it's not different, but there's a physical. You have to do a few things. You just can't say, "Oh, I'll pick that guy up," or "I'll put in my fab bid and take him." No, you got to go. You know what? I need to replace my running back. I need to get on this app and go to. I maybe need to go to a high school football game tonight where I'm more likely to find me a running back than if I just stay in my living room.
Right, but there's no strategy involved. And I think that's part of the reason why. But I mean, I guess that's fair because I'm speaking from a place of ignorance because I don't know enough about Pokemon Go. But from what I understand, you just walk around, turn around, and there's a Pokemon sitting there in front of you.
Pokemon can be random, but also Pokemon, they leave them. Meaning, if I go somewhere and I drop my running back and pick up another running back, or I drop my running back to get a new quarterback, then the next time you go to that spot, that guy, my guy that I dropped would be there. So there are, and that's the way the Pokemon thing goes. You collect certain things, but when you go to collect one, you have to drop another in some cases once you have so many in your collection. So, there's ways for those things to show up. Some it's random, some it's based on other people leaving it or the app generating it based on number of people in an area.
Right. So from that system, then it rewards randomness. So there's no way to really gain an edge on it. So to me, that'd be boring.
Okay. I'm just asking.
That's just me.
Joey's laughing. I'm saying, even back to Joey, the Geo thing. I know your son was into it for a few minutes because his grandfather was into it for 2.5 minutes.
That's because I was into it. I'm a
me and my daughter did it a few times, and it was kind of fun to get out there and do it.
You see like 2 or 3 stickers in a notebook where you sign your name. You're like, this sucks. And then the app makes you pay like all kinds of money and blah, blah, blah. So you're like, whatever.
Yeah, we wouldn't want anybody to make a living by having an app for you to use, but that's beside the point.
For like weeks.
You played what?
A single dime.
What are we talking about? What app did you play?
Flappy Bird. He made that for no money.
Oh, he got rich.
Shut it off.
He made that. He made millions of dollars. Don't give me that crap. There was ads in there. Yes, you didn't specifically pay for that app, but like I said, I think we were talking about that Fortnite game that's free makes $1.5 million a day selling free shit. I mean, it's a free game, but you can buy a blue colored sword for $3.
I want to know. So since we're talking about Pokemon or what are we talking about?
Pikachu, Pokemon Go,
Pokemon Go. Yeah. So it's like Inception. We're gonna go down like 2 layers deep. So are we gonna have a fantasy of a fantasy league?
Sure,
that takes like 2 years to complete, because if you go up one more tier, it'll only take like two days.
I guess I'm bringing it up because I could see where a family, you could get 5 families involved where the whole family's doing it. And they're building teams together. Maybe.
Let me reenact.
Maybe.
Where's it at, Dad? I'm bored. Let's go home. I don't want to do this anymore. This sucks. Why are we out here? Why did you bring me here? This sucks. Yeah. And that's me. That's just kids, me talking.
I'm just going to say, that is Joey. That is
just about it.
That is Mr. Activities right there.
Within the first 15 minutes, it's like, fuck this, man, I'm out.
We found the first one. Great, a book of stickers. Woohoo!
Yeah.
Can we go home?
Fantasy sports. Chris, are you mocking a lot?
Yeah, I have been over the last couple of mock drafts. Yeah, it's still doing some mock drafts.
How's your fishbowl draft?
No, I thought mine turned out fairly well. I haven't.
Yours is done. I know a lot of them are still going on, so yours is already done.
Yeah, ours finished. Our group was fairly quick in terms of making their draft.
Okay,
picks, so,
where was your draft position?
I went from the 9 spot. So I started off with from the 9 spot. I started off with Antonio Brown.
Antonio Brown dropped to 9.
Yeah.
Holy God, that was a no-brainer pick.
Oh yeah. So I started off with him, and then wrapped around and picked up Dalvin Cook in the 2nd. And then after that, it just kind of went off the rails. Like there was a massive quarterback run in the 3rd.
What were your options when you took Cook?
When I took Cook, my options at that point were still like the high end tight end. So like Gronk was still there, which in a tight end premium, that's what everybody was doing. Like in the early 2nd,
1.5 points.
Right. It was him. I could have gone wide receiver, and I could have taken somebody like Michael Thomas. But again, with the running back scoring, with the way that it was, because there is still points per first down this year. So I wanted somebody that I thought would be there for first downs. And so instead of picking I could have taken, I really wanted Melvin Gordon, but he was taking the pick before me. And I also wanted somebody that would catch passes, so I didn't want Leonard Fournette, so I went with Cook instead. I hedged a bit by trying to get Latavius Murray later on down the line, but
unfortunately, you were picking early in the 2nd. I think Cooks will go by then. And again, based on your selection, maybe that was the best. I'm not saying that's not even who I had taken. I'm just not sold on Cooks yet. Unfortunately, he still. He got hurt. Didn't play a lot of games. What, 5?
Yep, 5 games.
So, hard to put your 2nd round pick on 5 games. But, I probably would have gone Gordon instead, I guess. I agree with that. But maybe.
If I'd gotten him, that would have been solid.
And at 1.5 points, Gronk might have been hard to pass up there, maybe. But
that's what everybody was doing. Like Gronk, I saw in a lot of drafts, like Gronk was going in the 1st. Folks taking him, or like Kelsey would go in like the late 1st, early 2nd. So like a lot of folks were aiming for like the tight end premium was pushing tight ends like towards the.
So who'd you end up? Who's your tight end then? Who'd you end up with?
I grabbed George Kittle in like the 10th or 11th round, something like that. I think my tight ends are Kittle, Jared Cook, I grabbed also. I know those are my first two, like Kittle and Jared Cook, which I think at least for that value, because I got them at like tight end like 24 or something like that. It was fairly late in terms of value, so I still think in terms of the way that the scoring is set up for tight ends, I think they should be able to return value. I think both of them are on decent teams. Both should be heavily utilized, from their quarterback. So I would say that that's decent value for both of them.
All right. And you were happy with your team, man, overall?
Yeah, overall. I mean, again,
now are you in a league with anybody you know?
Yeah, a lot of the guys that we had a lot of industry folks in my division. So it was like myself, a couple of guys that one guy that works for DLF Dynasty League Football, one guy that works for the Best Ball Command Center that I'm a part of that does like a lot of tape analysis.
The important question is, are you Dayton famous? I just want to know, are you Dayton famous?
Absolutely not. I don't know of any other analysts that are in Dayton, but I'm not famous. Not
Dayton
at all.
Famous. Joey, are you Dayton famous now?
Dude, I have like 36 Facebook friends and 112 Instagram followers.
Now,
that sums it all up. I'm like as famous as it gets when it comes to Dayton.
I know, but we knew, me and you knew someone who was Dayton famous.
I can't hang.
I know. And he would have told you that.
Uh-huh.
He was Dayton famous.
My claim to fame is I have over 1,000 Twitter followers. That is my claim to fame. I'm internet famous, I guess.
My last sports question, and this will involve Joey. I tried to, again, fantasy people are going to hate us. Next week we'll get into fantasy. Me and Chris will be back to just a fantasy show. So thanks for sticking with us this month. But the question came up because I play sports. What?
You just got a message.
From?
Are you ready to get trolled with all of my accounts? If you wish to surrender, let me know. Troll on.
Tell them. Bring it on.
Let's go.
We can never have enough. Like I said, you never can have enough trolls.
You can never have enough trolls.
But here's my question, Joey, and because I think I've talked to you about something similar. Last night, my team won a sporting event on somewhat of a bullshit rule, but it was a rule. The other team, ended up obviously losing because of that. But because we had a true umpire, an official, he said, no, there's no negotiation. This is the rule. He's out. Game over. You guys win. I'm going to put this in. I know, and I'm going to, Joey's plays pool. I'm going to put this in that patch thing. Do you like winning because somebody didn't put a patch or point to the corner or say something, versus do you just say, you know what, I got beat. I don't care. What is your opinion on these? And again, this was a rule. It's a league rule. Technically, to be honest, I mean, it's a softball game. They batted out of order the whole thing, and it came down to the umpire even said, I said, is this negotiable? Because we won, but I was not willing necessarily. I didn't want to win this way, so I even said, now half my team was like, bullshit, we won, let's go. It's a tournament. This is the second week of a tournament. This gets us into the semifinals. Yeah. So it was a big deal. But and then even after the game, the team's calling us cheaters. We're like, we didn't. How did half that won't even shake our hands? We didn't cheat. You guys batted out of order. Unfortunately, one of our guys called you on it. But it became one of those deals. Is winning that way less? And this was a close game. Long story, quick short. They had two players on with 2 outs. We were winning by 2 runs. The guy that came up illegally was the guy already hit 2 home runs. If he hits a home run, they win the game. And then it just happened to be that our scorekeeper went, he's not up. He's not the guy supposed to be batting right now. So
I get it. I can sum it up very, very easily. If I knowingly know that they're about to break a rule, we'll use pool terms, patch to the wrong pocket, I will seriously tap the opponent and say, you need to use a patch. Like, I'll remind them. So if it were me, I would never let the person bat in the first place. If I physically knew that they were batting the wrong the player. When it comes down to rules, I am very much, if you won fair and square, you won fair and square. Back to pool, we clearly knew what pocket you were going to put it in. I will stop them before they shoot your shot. It may shark them a little bit, but I'm going to say, hey, you're about to shoot a shot. What pocket you're going to go into? Remember a patch. I don't like to win that way. So to answer your question, I would not win. I would not win that way, but if I'm part of a team and those are the rules, those are the rules.
Right. In this case, we did have an official, and the official, he said that's the call. You guys can't say, no, we're going to let them do it, as long as they bring the other guy up. No, the umpire went, no, that he batted out of order. That's the rule. That's the third out. You guys win, game over. Because it happened. I mean, it was the bottom of the seventh inning. This was it. They needed 2 runs to at least tie the game. Back to, and I'll put it in fantasy, Chris. In baseball, it's happened to me more than in football. But I have, especially with apps, what I thought was a lineup change that once the game starts, I look and go, shit, that didn't happen. I meant to change that. Yeah. So let's go the other way. If someone can, I'm trying to do it in a way where it sounds right. I don't even know, but some similar rule like that, where a commissioner goes, hey, you know what? I know for a fact he meant to do this and it didn't happen. So, he would have won, what I'm saying? Versus would you go, I don't care. I won. I don't care that the app screwed him out of that or something, worked wrong. I should still win, even though, and I was involved in something where totally, and again, sometimes those apps are pretty weird where it just says, drop a player versus you think you're just moving a player. And, I was involved in one where somebody dropped a player and within minutes called the commissioner and said, I did not mean to drop that guy.
Yes. I've seen that too.
So but I've been in leagues where the commissioner say, sorry, it's not my fault. Wow. You don't have to use the app. But I've also been in leagues where the commissioner goes, not a problem. Let me just switch it. I see it did happen, so, but do you want to win that way? Or do you, do you want them to be able to set their right lineup? Meaning, let's say it's a Super Bowl, fantasy Super Bowl, and someone, it's what's game time? 1:00, and at 1:05, the commissioner calls you and says, hey, the guy you're playing the Super Bowl just texted me, and he swears he put so-and-so in at quarterback, and it didn't take it. So I'm going to switch it. Are you okay with that?
I would say I would be okay with that, because again, if it's at the start of the game, you don't know how the game is going to play out. Now, if it's after the game is over and he went back and he's like, oh, I meant to put in this guy that went off.
Then let's stop. Let's say the commissioner has a text and a voicemail that this guy called 5 minutes after 1, but the commissioner wasn't available till the game ended. Now, you understand the difference here. He still called the commissioner, but the change didn't take place till after the game. Would you still accept that?
I would still accept that, because he wanted to make that decision before he knew the results. Okay. So I would honor that. But
now let's
flip it afterwards. No.
Right. But now let's flip it the other way, though. Would you want to win that way? Meaning the commissioner say, no, tough, Bob. I'm not letting you switch. I get it. You texted me and all that, but it doesn't matter. The game's over. Chris is the winner.
No, I wouldn't want to win that way.
But the commissioner, kind of like in this case, the umpire said those are the rules. This commissioner could say, hey, sorry, guys, those are the rules. If your lineup's not set by 1:00, I can't help you. You had 6 days, So I can see both sides. I can see the commissioner saying, I'm sorry. I know you don't want to win that way, Chris, but my league rules say you had to be set your lineup by 1:00, and he didn't. So I get it. You wouldn't want to win that way, but you would take a win, right?
Oh, absolutely. You're not going to twist my arm over a win. Absolutely not. But it'd just be my preference is that if we're going to play and we're going to play this game, I want to play it straight up.
Now, Joey, in the patching with pool, and I don't even shoot pool, but I hear, and the only reason I even know that is I've heard that patch argument seems to come up a lot with the people I know that play pool. Mm-hmm. Have you? I mean, are you one of those that you just don't even care, regardless what the rule is? Meaning, you know what? He looked at me, he knew it was, and he pointed to that corner. He didn't patch. I don't care. I lost. I don't care if they want to change. That's it. I lost.
So I've actually had it come to me both ways, and the best way I can explain the rule in pool, if nobody knows, basically means you have to patch your last shot, meaning you're declaring this is the pocket that ball goes in,
and usually the 8 ball, right?
Correct. Yes. A lot of leagues, if you're playing 8 ball or if you're playing 9 ball,
right?
The last ball on the table, no matter how it gets there, as long as it gets there, if you hit the ball legally.
One more monkey.
So where it comes up a lot is people forget or they're banking it and it was a clear-cut bank. And, someone told me, and I agree with this a long time ago, I played someone who was a very good pool player. And I'm not boasting, but I think I'm a above average pool player. So we basically declined to use the patch. I swiped the ball off the pool table before he even shot his 8-ball. The person said to me, goes, if you're not willing to do that for every single opponent you have, then do not do that. And I agree with that. Meaning, you swiped the ball off the table because you knew that guy was so good, he was going to make that shot 10 out of 10 times. If there was weaker opponents, they might make that shot 6 out of 10 times, so you're going to make them shoot it. So I agree with that. And so I agree with the rules. If you have to follow them, that's what you got to do. In my instance, like I said, a lot of times if someone's bending down to a shot and you clearly the patch wasn't there, I won't say a word. Where it happens the most time is where players actually admit to me that they broke the rules, and that's when I'm just one of those. You admit you broke the rules, but they're the rules that are set in place for weaker players. So we'll bring it back to I'm assuming softball. Those rules, you need to line up by 1 o'clock are for weaker teams who are lazy as shit that don't do it. So why should you penalize the teams who are there making it to the finals because they have their shit together? They just didn't follow a rule that maybe they didn't even know was a rule in the first place. So it shouldn't be fair that a better team should advance because they didn't read the fine print of rules. That's where I have a problem with rules. That's, I guess, how I would sum it up.
All right. Where knowing the rules is part of the game. And in fantasy, sometimes it's reading the rules of your league before you even draft.
A better team should win. So just because you don't necessarily know the rules doesn't give you an excuse, but at the same time doesn't always mean that you should, this is a technicality. You're screwed out of whatever. I mean, because you didn't do this or you didn't do that. I mean, it's ridiculous. Right. I think. Personally. Now, it also changes as you get to caliber of play. If you're talking a drinking beer softball league versus a World Series of softball league, there's a huge difference. You then should know the rules. You should study them. It's much more competitive league versus we're here to get drunk and shit, I didn't know we had to have our lineup by 1 o'clock. Let that go.
Well, that's fantasy. Fantasy rule. And the difference in fantasy is that's an app where if you don't have your set rule, if you don't have your lineup set by 1, the app just says you're done. It's locked. You can't change
it's totally different.
Yeah.
Well, but Chris, I'm sure it's happened almost all, especially early when I was learning. There were times where I would, how religious I am. I would have swore on the Bible. I clicked, put that guy in. I hit submit. I hit save, and because I was at unfortunately, Chris knows how it is. Sometimes at 1 o'clock. You can't always be where you hope to be to watch the event.
Yeah, on about doing whatever.
You're out at a daughter's ballet thing or something, and you're like, cool. And then an hour later, you look and you go, why the hell didn't it take that? Now I have never had a commissioner change. I mean, I've usually just survived. Obviously, if it was a Super Bowl, or a playoff game, I'll be there at 1 o'clock. I'll make sure it got set right. But, during the regular season, I don't think I would ever bitch, but I have accidentally dropped a player before. And, early on the ESPN app, it was just hard. I was like, it was hard to, get it set right, or you just would hit a wrong button and it would drop because the app wouldn't even question it. It would just say, okay, where the actual computer would say, are you sure you want to drop this guy? But I don't know. It's just one of those things. I kind of felt bad. And then, like I said, half their team was pissed at us. Like it was our fault. One, we were winning. 2, they had 2 outs. Yes, it was going to take a home run or a great play or 2 probably for them to actually win the game. Right. But, our score, and our scorekeeper even said, he goes, I only went out there because I realized that was their best hitter. I just wanted them to put the other guy up there to bat. You know what I'm saying? He was like, I didn't even expect the game to end here. I just knew that was their best hitter, and he wasn't to bat until the next guy. So exactly. Our odds of getting the other guy out was going to be better. So I went out and told the umpire, said, hey, he's not supposed to be up right now. And then that umpire turned into, okay, then he's out. That's the game. So it was one of those things.
It would have been a different story, like had the guy that was keeping stats for your team seen the guy coming up, knew he was breaking the rules, and waited until after he started batting to point out the fact that he was batting out of order.
Now, that's not the case.
Yep.
I know that's what I'm saying. That's totally different.
He actually went up before the guy, because I even looked at him, and now part of that is because he didn't quite know the rule. That was the point. He didn't realize that I needed to pitch one ball before it to be on a bat. So, in softball, just like in baseball, you're not, the pro baseball is a little different. Once they announce you to the I'm going to use the word legal scorekeeper. I mean, in a professional baseball game, it's not like in softball where each team has their own little book. No, there's I'll use the word professional scorekeeper. There is somebody there with Major League Baseball keeping the scorebook. Once they are notified he's now at bat, it's now illegal at bat. In men's softball, you have to throw one pitch. So once there's a pitch, now he is batted out of order. Up until that point, he's not batted yet. So I don't know, just one of those things. I felt bad. I said I was the first one. Guys, hey, I apologize. I mean, if I even said to the umpire, do we have any options to negotiate here? Boy, he goes, no. They bat out of order. That's the rule. Game over. I'm going home. So, all right. Well, that was just something. And I agree, in fantasy and all that, nobody wants to win by that. But at the same time, if it's in the Super Bowl of fantasy, it's a little different. But you got to assume if the guy was good enough to get there, then that's the point. At that point, you got to put up with it, I guess. Back to the World Series of Poker. If you're going to make a mistake at the final table, you've had 7 days. Get your shit together. If you're going to make a mistake there, well, that's why I don't like tournaments.
Yeah.
All right, guys. I had fun. We had we actually got to half of what I had written down. I had a good time. Chris, where can people get a hold of you and or anything important you need to mention?
You can find me on Twitter at Chris Allen FFWX, and my third or fourth piece. Well, I got a new piece out on for 4for4 that looked at QB strength of schedule, and along with also looking at some late round pairings. So if you were going to try and stream the position throughout the season, I came up with looked at strength of schedule along with average fantasy points allowed to defenses, and then looked at some pairings that you can kind of put together to kind of walk through the fantasy season.
That's out now?
Yes, it just dropped this morning.
Did you tweet that? I'll have to go back to your tweet thing. All right, I'll take a look at it.
It is.
I'll give you my opinion. Give you my opinion.
Absolutely. Go ahead. All
right.
Looking forward to it.
Next week we'll talk football. Joey, anything else you needed to bring up? If not, where can people get a hold of you?
You can get a hold of me at HBYOB.com, and I'm good.
All right. Well, I appreciate you coming out tonight. Chris, had a good time. I'm Easy Kill.
Always.
You can find me on Twitter. I'm just Easy Kill, out of Fantasy Fan. Next week will be full go with football for the fantasy show, and that'll pretty much get us started for the season. Kind of looking excited. Me and Chris have never done it through the regular season, so I'm kind of excited about gearing up for a fantasy football role here, and
looking forward to it.
Yeah, it'll be fun. So again, I appreciate everybody coming out tonight, and we'll see you next week, and say goodnight.